And another question for you regarding the weather. Minnesota obviously affords you the opportunity to cover tornadoes, rain, snowstorms, hail, wide variety. Do you find that fun and or challenging as opposed to if you were a weather reporter in, say, Arizona or New Mexico?
It's tremendously challenging, but also very fun. I mean, one of the things that's unique about this market is we're not just forecasting for the metro, we're forecasting for the entire state. So, a couple of weeks ago or a week ago, we had a storm that came through that created 6 tornadoes and dropped 6 inches of snow out of the same system. And you don't really get that anywhere else. So, as a bit of a weather geek, I mean, that's fascinating for me. That's fun to keep up with. And, any storm that comes through can do any of those things, so it's fun to keep you on your toes.
Yeah, I can imagine. Now, when it comes to forecasting, there obviously is a formula in figuring out, okay, 3-day, 7-day, 10-day forecast.
Right.
What kind of accuracy in general do most computer models give you? And as a weather person locally, is there kind of a need for thick skin? Because even if the computer tells you, obviously things have changed.
Sure.
Matt, you told me it was going to be sunny, and I dressed for it, and now I have to bring a raincoat.
That never happens. I don't know what she's talking about. No, I mean, the accuracy is a little tricky. I mean, forecasts are more accurate now than they've ever been throughout history. I mean, the degree to which we're able to get the forecast right is actually pretty incredible. Along with that, 1, 2, 3 days out, we've got pretty good certainty. 4 or 5, we're getting a little fuzzy. 6, 7, kind of flipping a coin just because the systems that would be affecting us are so far away. Any number of variables could change it. As far as having a thick skin, I got my first taste of this maybe it was a month ago now, and we were forecasting, everyone, by the way, not just us, everyone was forecasting for a weekend where it would have been like 60 on Saturday and 70 on Sunday. And I think the clouds just never moved, and we stayed in the low 50s one day and maybe got to 60 degrees the next day. And Twitter and Facebook and email and phone calls, and I was talking over it with Mike Augustinac, and I was like, did you have any idea? And he's like, no, sometimes the clouds just don't move. And I mean, that's where we're forecasting, we're telling you based on the best information that we have, but ultimately we don't control the weather, and Mother Nature has a mind of her own sometimes, and we are subject to that just like everybody else.
So you have to kind of laugh at yourself probably too sometimes, and realize that it's not that you're just reporting what the machine is too. You guys have had an experience, so it's like, okay, this is what it's telling me, and I'm making a educated decision based on what it's saying.
Well,
right?
and that's the thing. We're drawing from so many different computer models, and if you're lucky, they say the same thing, but more often than not, they don't. And you just kind of have to either pick which one you think is the most accurate, or draw together some sort of blended forecast from everything you're pulling upon. So, yeah, I mean, if we were just going to weather.com and reporting from that, I don't think there'd be any use for us after a while.
In reporting on weather, what's maybe one of the most exciting or challenging weather events that you've covered, either here in the Twin Cities or from a previous experience?
Oh, gosh. Well, I mean, this winter was challenging just from the fact that every storm missed us, or didn't do what it was supposed to do, and that just became so frustrating after a while. And the one storm we finally got, which we thought might have been a foot of snow, gave us 7 inches of slushy, snowy mess. And I think that is so difficult, because when you're looking at those winter storms, I mean, 1 degree temperature-wise in either direction, and you could end up with freezing rain, you could end up with snow, you could end up with sleet, and it's just this whole range that you have to deal with. So I think that's the most fun for me, because it is the most challenging, and at my root, I'm a New England boy, and I love winter weather anyways, so getting to talk about that stuff and forecast this stuff, it's just fun.
Now, I want to ask you this too, Matt. What's it like, we obviously don't see everything behind the scenes, but say when there's a severe weather alert and they're expecting maybe tornadoes or strong winds, 80, do a lot of the weather folks then get called in so that you can do, live shots and so forth? How does that work? Because obviously all of you are probably putting your heads together, so there's accuracy, but there's a lot of information too available.
And so there's consistency. I mean, I think that's important. You don't want to have somebody in the morning saying one thing and somebody at night saying something completely different. And when we know something is coming ahead of time, we can kind of get together and talk that over, and that's what we did with that one big winter storm when we had the team coverage, and Jamie Ukis was up in Bemidji, and I was out in the rain and snow reporting, and Chris Schaefer was inside nice and warm talking about it. And
no jealousy there.
No, not at all. I totally understand. But, you know, when we can kind of prepare ahead of time, that's great. But a lot of these times, these storms will just fire up, and you're dealing with tornado warnings across the state. And in that situation, it's going to be the meteorologist that is on staff, and then either Mike or Chris will come in and support them, or Lauren and I, you know, whoever's on staff at that point. It's usually about 2 of us that come in, just because if you've seen our weather center, it's not the biggest thing in the world, and you can't really get 3-4 people in there. And at a certain point, it does become too many cooks in the kitchen, and you know, it can muddle things up a little bit. So 2 seems to be a good number right now.
Okay. What's the biggest challenge that you found in just doing live television? Have you had any issues or conflicts where it's like, okay, we have to cut to this, or oops, I had a blooper moment?
Well, I'll tell you, the biggest blooper moments. The biggest challenge we have doing live TV is on Saturday mornings, because we have such a skeleton crew. Normally, every other show you'd see at WCCO has a producer back in master control, monitoring time, making changes, making sure live shots are coming through. We don't have a producer on Saturday morning, so Jamie comes in early, writes the show, and then we produce the show and keep track of things from the desk. So we have a laptop and we're monitoring time, and we're trying to coordinate with the director to talk to the live shot, to tell people to wrap up or stretch. And that is tremendously challenging, just sometimes if a live shot drops out and we have 3 minutes to fill and we're just sitting on the desk and we can't pull something else to get in there. I mean, that's tremendously challenging, but there's a lot of freedom in that too. You don't really have to stick to a script as much without having that producer in the booth, and Jamie and I are able to have a little bit more fun, chat a little bit more, and let things breathe. And I actually like that a lot about the show. That's why I think it is so different from what you're going to see around this market.
I think another thing too would be is if some big, and I watch the Saturday show pretty regularly.
Yeah.
If some big event or something happens Saturday night, or I mean Friday night or Saturday morning, that might probably tweak your show some too, as far as what kind of coverage the restaurant reviews and some of the other things, which are entertaining, but if the story is that big, and especially if it's locally, is that true?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if we have a big story break on Friday night, we do have the benefit of having 2 photographers and a live reporter that we can send out to it. So you'd have Rachel Slavic live, you'd have Jamie Ukis on the desk, and Jamie and Rachel have the news chops to deal with any sort of thing that's going to come up, and then it would, you know, it would become less of an entertainment, lighthearted show, and I'd probably just stay over in my little weather cave and do that.
One other last question I'll ask you about as far as doing television. Is it kind of hard transitioning between going from a news story, which, you know, could be a sad either a murder or loss of a loved one or something like that, and then just flipping in a sense emotionally to, and now we're going to go to either weather or talk about a restaurant? Can that be tough sometimes?
It is. We try to structure the show so there's never that hard of a left turn, but I think if you watch enough local news, you will hear phrases like shifting gears now, and you try to just change the topic altogether. I mean, and that's one of the bigger challenges that you have with doing live TV, is that you do have to get all these different topics into the show, and sometimes, you know, there's just not enough space to kind of taper into something, and you are going to have those turns every once in a while, and that is difficult. If you come off of a sad story and then you're supposed to, you know, get really excited about some kids event that's going on this weekend, that's tough, but we try not to put those stories back to back.
Yeah, you and Jamie both do a good job, so we appreciate that. And I just want to say, Matt, thank you for your time today. Appreciate the interview and the use of your time and your insights, and I appreciate it.
That was a lot of fun. Thanks, Joe.